for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas is coming from outside of the car.
Yes.
Testimony that throws cold water on the claim in the YNW Melly double murder trial that the shooting that killed two young rappers was a drive-by. These are the top moments from week 3 in the trial of Jamel Demons.
Introducing the next generation of pepper spray. Meet Palm, a new maximum strength self-defense product with a patented modular design, revolutionizing the self-defense industry. Whether you're carrying the unit on your keys, snapping the unit on your backpack, your keychain, or carrying the unit in your pocket, Palm is the perfect everyday carry accessory. Palm's patented flip-top safety prevents any accidental misfire, and its maximum strength formula provides you with the necessary range and capacity to bring peace of mind to you and your loved ones. Quality, safety, performance, peace of mind. Learn more at palmpepperspray.com.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. We just wrapped up the 3rd week of YNW Melly's double murder trial. It started out with YNW Melly's text messages and gang affiliation. Then it moved on to the medical examiner and an expert in bullet trajectory and crime scene reconstruction. Melly faces the possibility of the death penalty if convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder in the shooting deaths of Chris Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams in October of 2018. Thomas and Williams were part of the YNW collective and went by YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser. Melly's co-conspirator, Cortland Henry, who went by YNW Portland, also faces charges in their deaths and will be tried separately at a later date. Melly, whose legal name is Jamel Demons, faces the possibility of the death penalty under a lower threshold of an 8-4 vote by the jury. That was signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis this past April. The week started off with Danny Polo, the state's gang expert. He told the judge during week 2 that he has a $50,000 bounty on his head because of his work, so he asked to wear a mask. The defense objected, saying the jurors and Melly had a right to see him. The judge let him wear that mask. Polo has also testified in the XXXTentacion trial and others as an expert. But first thing on Monday, the defense brought up the mask again.
May I inquire from the witness?
Sure.
Sir, are you aware that your picture, along with your family, is on the internet as we sit here today?
Nope.
May I approach?
You may.
May I show you what is a picture of a mask? That is you and your family.
Yes, sir.
And that's on your wife's Cash App,
Yes, sir.
which is available to anyone who runs that, because we just ran this morning.
I guess so. I did my best to keep things as I want.
We would object to him continuing to testify with his mask on based upon that as public record.
Detective Polo was clearly surprised that his photo was on the internet. The judge said the mask had to come off, but that the cameras could not show his face. The prosecutor, Christine Bradley, presented text messages from Melly's phone before and after the homicides through Polo's testimony. In the 2 weeks before the homicides, Melly was clearly looking for a gun.
On page 17, October 14th of 2018. Can you read that one and then explain what it's meaning?
9807 number asks, you know someone selling a glizzy? Glizzy is a slang term for a Glock.
Okay.
Then Polo showed another text after the homicides. The state says it shows Melly was a member of the Bloods G-Shine set.
There's a message from, again, the genome to the 9807 phone number. If you could read that message aloud.
Are you a Rue? I was thinking you should drop a few chains and give them to the gang. That'll show people who you connected with. It's not mandatory, just a thought.
Okay. The response.
Not everybody, of course.
Is there a dues or tithing that's required as for membership in a criminal gang?
Yeah, as described in the oath and many times throughout the Bible, it's not about the individual, it's about the collective. The mere fact that he wasn't even communicating communicating with Gino and with his lineup enough, that was enough for them to say, you're not doing enough for us. And now, a step further, let's, we need to be brought to these shows, and you should buy this some jewelry, because that jewelry's not cheap.
Okay, so then the next message from December 12th says you're in the position to be a young Don. What is a young Don?
Higher up, captain.
Okay. Is that one of the ranks?
They didn't reference that name as in their Bible as what they call their ranks. So I think it's just like a term related to the mafia, Don.
Okay. And the response from the 9807 phone number is?
Let's do it.
Okay.
On cross-examination, Melly's lawyer questioned Polo about whether Melly was really a Bloods member.
We were also speaking yesterday about the fact that Melly was largely unresponsive to many of the overtures that were being made, the attempts to recruit him. Right?
I think he was already recruited, but what you're saying is he wasn't responding to the people that were messaging him
Okay.
within the organizations.
Okay. And I had gone through a list or a demonstration of several messages that were not being responded to, right?
Correct.
And I think I had asked you later on in my examination whether that was Gino, and you were like, no, that's not Gino.
Yeah, we went through two different, I think, text threads. One was Gino and one was Herc.
Okay.
The jury also heard testimony from the pathologists who performed the autopsies on Chris Thomas and Anthony Williams. Dr. Rebecca McDougall performed Sack Chaser's autopsy.
The first injury to the head, was it? Back of the head was the fatal injury, right?
So in this case, that's the fatal injury because the other two, he was dead when they were inflicted.
So this person, when he received the other two injuries, was already deceased.
Correct.
Did not suffer any pain from those two injuries.
He's already dead.
Fair enough. Okay. And you indicated that these injuries were indeterminate.
Correct.
Which means, layman terms, simple term for me to understand, means that you cannot tell how far away or how close the shooter or shooters were when this occurred.
Yes.
And Dr. Adrian Souter performed the autopsy on Chris Thomas, who is known as YNW Juvie.
Can you show the mark that you placed on that would be equivalent to the mark A on Christopher Thomas's face?
So the entrance wound would be approximately right here on the cheek.
And in terms of where the occipital bone, where you said that the impact or the terminal location of the bullet was, where would that be on that?
So in order to accurately depict that, you would have to open the brain, and if I don't do that, then approximately right here, but on the inside.
And so if you could just turn and show that to ladies and members of the jury and point to that. Moving on to the next photo, C. Does C line up with B? Is that the other side of the hand?
Yes.
Can you tell if this is an entrance or an exit wound?
No.
Same reasons as for B?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of wound D, what are we looking at here?
D is a defect to the D is the entrance wound to the medial lateral aspect. Medial dorsal aspect of the left foot.
And if you could explain what dorsal means.
Posterior.
Okay. And how can you tell that D is an entrance wound?
Because of the characteristics of the wound and because it has an abrasion margin.
In terms terms of the order in which you label from A to D, are you suggesting in any way that that's the order the wounds were inflicted?
No.
The state then called Sergeant Christopher Williams, who is a crime scene reconstruction expert, to really explain what those autopsy results meant and how the shooting occurred, in his opinion. He testified that shots fired inside the SUV killed Juvie and Sack Chaser.
So Mr. Williams was not even aware he was about to be shot. When Mr. Williams was shot, Mr. Thomas puts up his hands and is shot, and then is shot again. There's no time for anybody to switch a firearm. If there were, I believe one of those individuals would be alive. There's no time to switch. It was a very, a rather rapid event of firing.
Can you say the length of time between the fatal shots and then the stage drive-by shots later on?
It was enough time for the heart to stop beating, for there to be no circulation due to the wounds that I examined from the medical examiner's office. None of the wounds have any blood in them, which tells me that they're all ante-mortem wounds. So the time was long enough for the heart to stop beating.
Okay. Is there scientific or medical testing to recreate that in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, it's knowledge. It's the I'm sure the medical examiner could say the same thing.
So in terms of, it's nothing that can be recreated with a live human.
Correct.
In terms of the number of shots, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were fired inside the car?
3.
And can you exclude the shots to the head for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside the car?
Yes.
The defense really couldn't shake Sergeant Williams, although they tried. He was confident in his assessment that Juvie and Sack Chaser were shot inside the SUV.
What's the best way to get an idea of how big the inside of that car is?
You can measure it, or you can also view it.
And where's that car?
That car is in the crime scene unit forensic processing garage right now.
Is it available for the jury to view this morning?
Yes.
Now, the jury didn't get to see the car this week. Security needs to be arranged for the jurors to see it, but that could happen next week. So the jurors will get an up-close view of that SUV. On Thursday, prosecutors told Judge Murphy they plan to call Chris Thomas Jr.'s mother to testify.
And are you related to one of the decedents in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother,
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
The defense did not want Chris Thomas's mother to take the stand. They were concerned it could cause a mistrial if the testimony became too emotional. But she was called for a very limited purpose, to identify the people leaving the recording studio on October 26, 2018 at 2:19 a.m., shortly before the murders.
Positive 21915. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right-hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Janelle.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know him by another name?
Melly.
And do you see Melly Jamel Demons in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
And he's identified by an article of clothing and where he's sitting in the courtroom?
He's sitting over there. He have a tuxedo for, I think it was for.
Okay.
Leandra Phillips's testimony was brief. You could see she's been through so much, losing her son, and now sitting through this trial. And really, she's sitting there watching this video of her son moments, minutes possibly, before he was murdered. So she's watching him get into this vehicle, basically riding to his death. The defense did not ask her any questions, which was likely a very smart move.
Ms. Phillips, we want to express our condolences to you.
Thank you.
After that, the prosecution showed the jury more than 300 videos and photographs from the phone the state says belonged to Melly at the time of the murders. The defense has raised the possibility that Melly wasn't the only person using the phone number that ended with 9807. The name on the phone is actually Young Sack Chaser. The phone includes many texts to Melly's mom and also other rappers, including Fredo Bangs, who picked him up the morning of the murders. To prove to the jury that this phone indeed belonged to Melly and was in his possession before and after the murders, Assistant State Attorney Christine Bradley showed the jury each video and photo one by one that show Melly holding the phone or photographing himself with the phone taking a selfie. Investigators extracted the videos and photos from that phone. And on Friday, Cortland Henry, who is YNW Melly's co-defendant in the case, appeared in court for a status hearing, and his attorneys were asking to modify the conditions of his release.
Yes, Judge. As the court, when we were here the last time, you let him go to church and stuff, you said about working, you would be subject to seeing his schedule. We filed a schedule for the next couple of months. I saw that. And he would like to be able to work. And I talked to his probation supervisor. She has no problem with him at all. She said that if he's going to go to work, she'd like anybody has to do, provide an itinerary, where he's going to be, how he's going to get there, how it's going to get done, when he's going to be back, and the normal check-in, drug testing, everything that goes with that.
This schedule includes, locations all across the eastern seaboard and Midwest in terms of the ability to supervise for probation and pretrial rather. That is almost impossible. With regards to the time frames and all of the studio issues on that, I don't understand why they have to be until midnight or 11 p.m., why they can't be done during other hours on that. So the state would object. He's already shown prior issues with pretrial. So for those reasons, the state would say that the current schedule only needs to be maintained for another 3 or 4 months at this point before we'll be in trial.
Respect the motion tonight. All right. Thank you.
Portland didn't look very happy as he left court after Judge Murphy denied his request to modify his bail to allow him to travel. He remains on house arrest and his trial is scheduled for October. The trial of YNW Melly is dark next week. The 4th of July falls at that time. Testimony will resume the following week, and we will, of course, have it covered for you on lawandcrime.com and Law and Crime's YouTube channel and on the Law and Crime Trial Network. And that's it for this edition of Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. You can listen to and download Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always watch it on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. I'm Anjanette Levy, and we will see you next time.
Moving on to the next photograph. What are we looking at here?
This is Detective Mark Moretti reading the search warrant for the vehicle.
The vehicle in question, what is it?
I believe it was a Jeep Compass.
Is that the same that's indicated on that photo in the red lettered writing?
Yes.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in here? I'm going to zoom in here to the hood area.
That is another piece of evidence tape used to seal the vehicle in the same way that we sealed the premises prior to a search warrant. The vehicle and all of its entries are sealed prior to the search warrant being executed.
So, for example, now looking at the screen down here, the bottom of the passenger side doors, that red item, is that the same evidence tape we've been looking at?
Yes, it is.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in this image?
This is showing the front passenger side portion of the vehicle.
Moving on to the next photo.
This is showing the exterior of the front passenger side and rear passenger side doors.
Have you begun executing and searching the search warrant at this point?
No, I have not.
So what is the purpose of all these exterior outside photos?
All these are to document the vehicle in which I found it when I responded to the search warrant, and all photos are taken prior to the execution of the search warrant.
So again, going to the rear door seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And the rear trunk seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
The initials MK that are on that, do you know who those belong to?
Yes, that is Michael Kelly, which
And
was my supervisor at the time.
You read my mind as to my next question. On the back of this vehicle photo, what is the tag number of the Florida tag that was assigned?
India Echo Kilo Delta 22.
For those of us not in law enforcement, can you please translate?
IEK D22.
The India Echo Kilo Delta that you just used, what is that commonly referred to? The alphabet.
The phonetical.
Going on, what are we looking at on this image?
This is showing the driver's side exterior of the vehicle.
And going to the seals on this particular item.
Sorry, repeat that.
The seals right here on this particular area or item of the door, was it intact?
Yes, it was.
Moving on to the front door seal at the bottom between the front driver's door and the rear driver's door. Was this seal also intact?
Yes, it was.
As to the state of the windows of the car, had they been manipulated in any way while you were taking these pictures?
No, they were not.
Moving on to the final picture of the evidence tape here on the driver's side door by the A column near the hood. Was this evidence seal still intact?
Yes, it was.
What was the VIN or vehicle identification number of this vehicle?
3C4N JDD B2 JT 198929.
The first photo that we're looking at here was now inside the vehicle. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you're documenting in this photo.
From here, I took photos of the exterior of the vehicle. Then the doors of the vehicle were opened up, and as is, without anything being moved or disturbed, photographs of the interior of the vehicle were collected.
So you say without being anything moved or disturbed. What do you do to make sure that you're not contaminating any of the evidence?
I wear gloves prior to each time touching the vehicle, and that goes with touching my equipment, going back to the vehicle, and vice versa.
The front passenger side view that we're looking at right here. Later on are the items collected.
Yes, they are.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. With what area of the car are we looking at here in this next photo? My apologies.
That is the area between the front passenger seat and the door jamb for the front passenger door.
Okay. Next photo, what are we looking at here?
That is the front passenger side floorboard.
Moving on here, the seats, did you manipulate them in any way before taking this photograph?
No, we did not.
Moving on into the next photograph, what are we looking at there?
Those are gold caps for teeth.
And so it's clear that that's a close-up photo from this rear passenger door. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that's correct.
When we're looking out this rear passenger door, what are you documenting in this particular area?
I'm documenting the interior of the rear passenger door and the door jamb for the rear passenger door, as well as the seat and the floorboard of the rear passenger.
Moving on to the next image, what are we looking at in this photo?
That is a spent projectile.
So I'm going to go back a photo. Is that the same projectile that is down here?
Yes, it is.
Going forward again, what are we looking at in this image?
That is the rear passenger side floorboard and the items that were found there.
Continuing to the next photo, what are you documenting in this image?
In this image, you can see the partial back of the front passenger side seat, the, again, floorboard of the rear passenger side floorboard, the rear passenger side seat, and a projectile hole that you can see defect on the seat.
And so I'm going to zoom in on an area. Can you explain what you're talking about, the projectile hole?
Yes.
And you can use this screen to touch if you're to draw attention to certain areas.
I observed a defect in the seat that is later on gone into detail.
Okay. Moving on to the next image here. What are we looking at?
This is the rear passenger side seat as well as the rear center console and cup holders and partial of the rear driver's side seat.
This area in the center with the two spray cans. Is that how you found it in the down position?
Yes, it was.
In this image here, can you describe a little bit about what's the red and white plastic item on the bottom on the floorboard? What is that?
That is a plastic bag.
Okay. What are you documenting in this image?
This image shows the trunk which had been opened, and in the photograph you can see the car manual and a jacket.
Did you disturb any of the glass? Did any of the glass move when you were opening that trunk?
Not that I recall.
What are you in this next image? I'm going to go back one. Did you open the rear trunk to get better photographs inside?
Correct.
Is this the interior of the rear trunk lid?
Yes, it is.
Can you kind of describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to how the trunk lid is, and how you're taking the picture so they can orient themselves in space?
Correct. In this photo, the orientation is staying in the back of the vehicle. The hatch trunk is opened up, and I'm looking upward at the interior of the trunk.
And so why did you take a picture of this white fuzzy stuff?
I observed a projectile defect.
Moving on to the next photo. What did you document here?
This is a yellow jacket that was found inside the trunk that I observed red stains on.
Why would you document red stains?
Because of the presumptively would be blood.
Did you do any presumptive testing at this point?
Not at this point.
Moving on to this next image. What are we looking at here?
This is the rear driver's side seat from the vantage point of the driver's side and the driver's side door. It shows the driver's side seat, the driver's side floorboard, as well as some of the cup holders and rear passenger side seat.
Next image, what are we looking at here?
This is also another photo of the rear driver's side and cup holder.
Next image, what are you focusing on in this particular image?
This photo shows the rear driver's side floorboard, which has a Gatorade bottle, a cap, and a white plastic bag.
Moving on to the next image, what are you showing here?
In this image, this shows the interior of the front driver's side door and somewhat of the interior of the front driver's side seat and floorboard.
Moving on to the next image here, what are you looking at?
This image shows the steering wheel, partial of the front driver's side seat, the center console, and the side of the front passenger side seat.
On the next image now, we have a little bit different. Why do you put these yellow numbers?
These numbers, that's how photo markers now in my agency. I refer to them as placards, so I might refer to them also as placards. But these placards show and denote items of interest that will later be collected, and it's easier to recall back to a certain item and to show where that item is.
As you're documenting and collecting the evidence, do you use these photo markers in your reports and notes?
Yes, I do.
So, to go back to the photo of 1, 2, 3, 5, where did you collect the items at photo marker number 1?
Yes, I did.
Do you maintain the liquids that are inside of them when you work with the Miramar Police Department?
I do not recall.
As to photo marker number 3, did you collect the items of evidence that were there next to photo marker number 3?
Yes, I did.
Moving on to photo marker number 6, did you collect the gold teeth that were in that pocket there?
Yes, I did.
Item number, item number 7, did you collect that item?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That was the spent projectile.
For item that's at photo number, marker number 8, what was that and did you collect that?
I believe that is denoting the pair of shoes. Yes, I did.
Okay. And to go to a better picture for photo marker number 9, did you collect the item at photo marker number 9?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That is a cell phone.
As to photo marker number 10, did you collect the 2 Sprite cans that were there?
Yes, I did.
Going on to the rear of the vehicle, photo markers 12, 13, and 14. Did you collect the various items listed in this photo?
Yes, I did.
Did you have help and assistance in processing this vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Who helped you?
Crime scene technician Tara Carroll.
Did you guys have a plan of attack as to how to process the vehicle?
We split up the vehicle into certain sections, and each processed those areas of the vehicle and collected the items that were in relation to those areas.
So it's clear to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what section were you assigned?
I was assigned to the driver's side of the vehicle.
In your report, how did you write down which side you were responsible for?
In the report, it shows that swabs were taken from the passenger side of the vehicle, which was incorrect in the report, and was later shown as a correction in the prior receipts, as well as the original swab boxes that were collected on scene.
So let's stop for a second there and explain when you're collecting swabs, what are you doing?
I am using sterile distilled water and placing that onto a cotton swab and passing that over, rubbing that over an area that in which I either believe there may be the presence of DNA, and that area is processed with the swab, then placed inside a sterile swab box, and on that swab box I notate where that item was, or what item was swabbed with the swabs.
So let's go very minute, detail by detail. First thing you do is what? When you're getting swabbed and you're ready to swab an area. Do you change your gloves?
Correct.
I want very precise.
Yes. I get my new pair of gloves out of the box and take the new sterile swab over the swab packaging, as sealed and sterile, and open up a new sealed container of sterile water, and that water is then placed in drop form on the top of the swab, and then the swab is then rubbed over the area in which I intend to process.
Do you ever dip the swab back into the sterile water and sort of double dipping, for lack of a better term? After you swab the area, what's the next step you take?
The swab box is opened, the swabs are put inside the swab box, and then that swab box is closed, and then I notate on the swab box what items processed with the swabs.
Do you complete the property receipt at that same time?
I do not.
When do you complete your property receipt?
The property receipt is completed later on in the office, when the item is then going to be submitted to the Evidence Bureau.
When do you do your report?
The report is done following, usually when all work is done.
Okay. So in terms of the most accurate description of what is that swab is of, what would that be?
The note on the swab box.
Okay. So going back to the photos, in terms of the process and the timing, when you're doing the swabs, is it before these photos, after these photos, just so the jury understands the way you process the car?
The way I process it is I remove all items that are deemed as evidence, and I remove those from the vehicle. And then prior to any other processing, whether that be prints, the car is processed for possible DNA, and then they're latent prints.
And to be clear, did you do any of the latent prints in this case?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Moving on to the pictures with item markers or photo markers 10, 11, 16 here. Were those items 16, 11 collected?
Yes, they were.
And forgive me. In terms of the numbers and the item numbers, was there a time or a number that you collected 1 through 15, 1 through 20, the items, and Ms. Carroll collected the others?
Yes, there were.
And do you recall which specific photo markers and items you were responsible for collecting?
I would have to refer to that report.
Would you looking at a report and refresh your recollection as to that?
Yes, I do.
If I may approach that?
Yes.
Can you refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, that being said, I'll ask again. Which items or photo markers were you responsible for collecting numerically?
Items 12 through 20 were items that I collected.
In terms of these photographs, they were all taken by you. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Moving on to item number 18 and 17. Did you collect those two?
Yes, I did.
19 and 20 as shown here. Did you collect those?
Yes, I did.
What are we looking at in this photo here?
This photo shows the trunk portion of the vehicle with the hatch covering the spare tire removed.
The processing here again at the what location of the car on this photo or next one?
This is the front driver's side photo.
Okay, you have, and what photo marker is here? So what are we looking at here underneath the brake pedal?
That I believe is a spent projectile.
Is that then marked with photo marker number 24 that we're looking at in this photo?
Yes, it is.
And item number 23, the glasses case. You were documenting that? Sorry.
Correct.
On to photo marker number 25. Did you take these images here?
Yes, I did.
Photo marker 26. Did you take those?
Yes, I did.
Are these the items that were in the glove box?
Yes, they are.
In terms of this enterprise receipt that we're looking at here, does that vehicle description listed on this enterprise receipt and VIN number match the Jeep Compass that you've been looking at?
No, they do not.
And the name of the individual who rented this vehicle, was that on this enterprise receipt? On the, and not the Jeep Compass, my apologies, I'll rephrase. The enterprise receipt, did it have a name of a renter on it?
Yes, it did.
And what was that?
Jamerson Francois.
I'm going to move on to the next photo here. What have you done to document the scene in this photo inside this Jeep?
In this photo, it shows two trajectory rods were placed inside of the projectile defects to show an approximate path of the projectile.
Excuse me, can we approach?
Sure.
Investigator Carter, as you were saying, explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what are these green red items that are now in the back seat of the Jeep?
These are called trajectory rods. Like I said, they're used to show the approximate path of the projectile when it struck the surface.
How many trajectory rods are in this photo that we're looking at here?
There are 7.
Going forward to the next photograph, what are we looking at here?
This is the opposite side of the rear passenger side seat, showing the trajectory rods coming.
Objection. Same objection? Yes, sir. Overruled.
Again, showing what?
Showing the trajectory rods coming through the back of the rear passenger seat and through to the front of the rear passenger side seat.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you place them?
The trajectory defect, pass through the object, and then through the other defect on the opposite side.
Going forward to this next photo, all the other items of evidence have been removed. So I want to go for time frame. How long after the initial processing are we talking where you're doing these trajectory runs?
I do not have time for that.
When we're looking at this photo here, what are we looking at?
This is the rear driver's side interior door and floorboard.
Looking here at this photo, what are you documenting and where is it in relation to that last photo?
I'm documenting a projectile defect that was in the door jamb of the rear driver's side door.
And so I'm going to go back to the last photo. If you could circle a couple of times on the screen the area that you are photographing in the next photograph. Okay. And going to the opposite angle view of that. Can you again circle the defect so it's clear? And to get this photo, how did you have to position the rear driver's side door?
The door had to be fully opened, and the defect had to be photographed from looking from the inside of the vehicle out.
Okay. So going on to the next photograph here, you mentioned prior that there was a projectile on the seat that you recovered.
Correct.
Is this the process you had to undertake?
Yes, it was.
What did you do? Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I used a scalpel to remove the top layer of the leather, and it showed a projectile that was situated inside the fungus.
Is this another view of that process?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you assign a photo marker to that item and collect it?
Yes, I did.
And what are we looking at this image?
This is an image of the projectile as it was removed from the foam to be fully photographed.
Okay. So those 65 photos that you took at the processing of the Jeep, is that, and we've gone through all of those. I'm going to move on now to the photos that you took of the items of evidence